Hello folks, this is Sula once again. This is going to be a somewhat different video that I'm putting up on YouTube. This is going to be a video of my solo Runelord character as she progresses through kind of this endgame boss gauntlet at the end of Octopath Traveler. Let me go ahead and load up the save file. So as a quick background, this is a solo Runelord character. Now obviously Runelord is a job that you are not supposed to access from the beginning of the game in Octopath Traveler, but I was able to use kind of a cheat code setup, not really a code, but was able to use kind of a setup to be able to access this class and play it from the beginning of the game. And what I'm going to show in this video is, like I said, kind of this end game boss gauntlet here at the end of the Gate of Finis. So we're going to get started with the most difficult of these 8 bosses. There's 8 bosses, 1 for each character, and they are all refights of fights done earlier in the game. What makes them tricky is you have to do all 8 of them in a row without getting a break between them. And then you get on to kind of the final endgame boss, but that's not going to be the focus of this video. So this boss here is Therian's boss. This is Darius. He is the most difficult I've found for solo characters, and that is why I'm going ahead and facing him first here, because if it's the most difficult fight, you want to get it out of the way first. His big gimmick is he will steal your items, and that is very bad for Tressa because she does not have any abilities to heal herself as a Runelord. So in order to heal myself, I have to break him in order to get items back again. Fortunately, that's not too hard to do here with the Runelord, so I was able to immediately get 2 breaks of shields on the first turn. Then I'm actually going to defend so that I go to the top of the order on the next round. And the reason why I do that is so that Tressa will have enough boost points to use her Divine skill here on this turn. So we break Darius, and then we use the Runelord's Divine skill, which is Balorgar's Blade. You're going to be seeing that a lot in this video, because I'm going to be using it quite a bit against all of these bosses. It hits 6 times with all 6 of the Runelord's elemental runes, and fortunately right now, I'm able to go ahead and use an item because Tressa's about to die. She got her items back when she broke Darius. And I'm going to use the Revitalizing Jam, which restores not only all of your hit points and all of your spirit points, which are this game's version of magic points, but it also restored boost points as well. And then that allows me to put her Wind Rune back in play once again. I'll talk more about how the Runelord class functions after we get through this boss fight. But for the moment, what I'm trying to do is Darius will eventually get around to stealing Tressa's items again. And in order to get our items back, I will then have to break him again. The difficulty of breaking him the second time is he grays out the axes weakness that he had before. So at the start of the battle, I was able to have Tressa hit him both with axes and with wind element in order to break through his shields. But he has now grayed out that, or redded out that axes weakness. And as a result, I can only hit him with the wind element right now. The other question mark is a weakness to daggers, which is a damage type that the Runelord doesn't have access to. The Runelord can use all 6 of the elements, but only only swords and axes for the physical damage types. So I need to try to break this boss before he gets around to stealing items once again. What I want to do is I want to break him, and then I want to hit him with another Balorgar's Blade for like really heavy damage after that. So here I've been able to get him down to 2 shields remaining, but unfortunately Darius is hitting on a lot of his attacks. All of his physical attacks, Tressa has a chance to dodge them. I'm actually running a pretty high evade setup with her so that she has decent odds to dodge, but she's not doing a great job of dodging, unfortunately. You'll note that she's getting hit by just about every physical attack, which is a little unfortunate because the more rounds I have to spend healing, the fewer rounds I have to hit the boss himself. Like right there, 3 physical attacks in a row, getting hit by all of them. Not great, so thus I'm forced to use another refreshing jam here. Even though I really would prefer to attack, I don't really have a choice, I have to heal. The other thing I need to mention is Darius, when he drops under 50% hit points, he goes from 2 actions per turn to 3 actions per turn, which makes him really dangerous. And there, unfortunately, now the steal items has come back around, and this is really bad because you'll notice he has 2 shields left, but I only have 1 more turn of the wind element rune, 1 more turn of the windy pursuit there. So that's bad. The way that I had kind of planned this battle was such that Tressa would be breaking him on that attack right there, but unfortunately I'm like 1 attack behind because Tressa had to spend so many rounds healing. So here I have to put the wind rune back in effect again, otherwise I will not be able to break him. Remember, she needs to get her items back. She can't use items, she can't heal right now. So Tressa's down to 1000 HP, but I really have no choice. I have to hit him and break him here. I could, in theory, opt to heal here, but again, the battle's kind of set up so that I will use Balagar's Blade for really heavy damage here. The idea is that I use Balagar's Blade here for, I don't know, 50,000 damage, and then I just need one more Balagar's Blade to finish him off. I'm actually kind of expecting Tressa to die here, but she gets the critical dodge right when I need it on the sweep. Otherwise, you wouldn't be watching this video, and so she actually manages to survive just barely, and so I'm going to heal her back up again. Honestly, I don't think I needed the Revitalizing Jam. I think I could have just used the one that doesn't restore boost points, because Darius is going to die right here, but I wasn't 100% sure that he would die, so went for the safer play, used the Revitalizing Jam, and so then he dies to that Balagar's Blade and gets finished off. So that's the toughest of the 8 bosses, and that's the one that I fight first, because it's the one that's most likely to result in a game over. Now, when you defeat these 8 kind of endgame boss rushes, you get this additional text that reveals a little bit more about the plot of the game. I am just going to scroll past this quickly. If people are curious, they can pause the video to read it. I recognize you can't read it that fast, but I didn't want to spend like 2 minutes reading each one of these because this video is going to be long enough already. So that was Therion's boss, Darius. Next up, I'm going to do the second hardest of the bosses, and that is going to be Primrose's boss, Simeon. So note when I'm stacking up here, I'm going to pick up an Articulate Stone, which blocks silence, and a Void Amulet, which basically blocks dark element damage. These are both abilities that you will see Simeon using over and over again. He likes to silence you, and most of his damage, or a good portion of his damage, is dark element. So this attack is both of them actually. Silence comes, both silences you and it's dark element. And you see the result, Tressa takes no damage and is not silenced. So you might say, well, what's going on here? Why are you just standing here? This is where I actually had to go let our dog out. He got up and needed to go outside, so I needed to stop here for about 2 minutes. But I'm going to use this 2 minutes to talk a little bit more about the Runelord as a class, just to give a little bit more background. If that's boring, you can just fast forward for 2 minutes here. So this class is one of the secret job classes. You are not supposed to have access to it from the beginning of the game. I mentioned that I used kind of a hack, cheat program hack to get Runelord enabled. Didn't do anything else, just enabled the job from the start of the game. There is no character default associated with the Runelord class by default. I went ahead and picked Tressa for this playthrough. She's kind of the character who people most often turn into a Runelord. Her merchant job set kind of synergizes really well with the Runelord as a class, particularly because you can use Transfer Rune and then give everyone one of the merchant abilities, which is Sidestep, grants guaranteed physical evade. Really nice in a full party setting. So I just picked Tressa, could have picked anyone else, but she fit reasonably well with the job class. What the Runelord does is kind of the signature ability are these 6 runes. There's one for each element. What it does is it causes, well, I've got the text highlighted right here. Weapons the user attacks with will deal additional light-based damage for 3 turns. If you invest more boost points, the rune lasts for more turns. So there's one of them for all 6 elements. You can add kind of this elemental pursuit, this extra elemental damage that follows your auto attacks. And the Runelord class is really, really strong because that extra damage is just enormous. You might have noticed every single time I've attacked, it's done the maxed out damage, 9999. And it would be doing more than that, it's just that that's the damage cap. And since Tressa is only a Runelord and is not able to use any other abilities, she can't go ahead and exceed that damage cap. She would need one of the warrior passive skills to do that. So anyway, that's our 2 minutes up. We're back to the battle. Little basic to the Runelord class. The main skills are based on using that elemental pursuit. So right there, I've chosen to take the ice element damage, and it's just going to do a guaranteed 9999 every single time, which is just, again, amazing damage. This class is really, really, really powerful. Arguably the strongest class in the game, although I want to finish playing through the other classes too before I make a final verdict on that. I'm deliberately picking Ice here because Ice actually gets a damage bonus from Tressa's weapon. She's using a weapon called the Battle Tested Axe, which deals additional damage for Ice element and for Lightning element. It's not really useful here because she's maxing out the damage cap every single time, but hey, why not? We might as well. Unfortunately, I can't break Simeon in this battle, and that's one of the reasons why he is the second hardest of this group of enemies after Darius. He doesn't do anything as annoying as stealing items, but I can't break him because his only weakness is daggers. He is Primrose's opponent, and she is the one who uses daggers, her and Therian. It's just a damage type that the Rune Lord doesn't have access to, so I will never be able to break him here, unfortunately. And that makes the battle a lot more dangerous because I can't get that double damage from using Tressa's divine skill, Balogar's Blade. This battle is also noteworthy because Simeon becomes much more dangerous after he drops below half health. He's actually kind of a joke before he drops below half health. He will go up to 3 actions per turn when he goes down to half health. So I am just trying to get as much damage as possible on him before he drops below half health. I'm going to knock him down to like 51% health here, and then I'm going to use Tressa's Divine Skill so that I minimize how much time is spent on the more dangerous second half of the battle. So like right now, I know that I'm getting close to the point in time where he's going to fall below half health. So I'm going to refresh Tressa's Elemental Pursuit. I want to have extra turns stacked up. I'm also going to fill up her boost meter here so that it's going to be full. I want to have like as many turns of her Elemental Pursuit as possible and a full boost meter before I knock him below 50% health. So that's what I'm doing. And of course I want to be full health as well. So that's the logic here, why we're doing things in this order. So all right, now we should be pretty much all set up. And now we can prepare to knock him under half health. So here we go, Balogar's Blade. This will knock him under half health, and then the battle will get more dangerous. Look how much less damage is done by Balogar's Blade because Simeon is not broken. So here we go. Now he is going to go up to 3 actions per turn, and he's going to start doing the only attack that's really dangerous. Yeah, give yourself to the darkness. That's him going up to 3 actions per round. And he's going to start doing the only action that's dangerous, which is called Active Impulse. You will start seeing that. He also does this where you can't see who's going to act in what order, but it doesn't really matter for a solo character. I can tell when I'm going to act because there's no other party members. But he's going to continue trying to silence. Thank goodness we have silence blocked due to equipping that Articulate Stone before the battle. And that's his actual dangerous battle, Active Impulse. You can see it deals like 2,000 damage when it pops up. And he does it a lot too. It's not like he rarely breaks it out. He'll do it about once every 3 actions. So we want to minimize how the portion of the battle where he can use that attack. Fortunately, Tressa's dodging them at a pretty good rate. I believe the accuracy is slightly lower for that attack just because I've had better odds of dodging it. But again, it's a dangerous attack. If he hits on a couple of them in a row, he could potentially kill Tressa. So I'm just trying to Balogar as much as possible, even though it does less damage because Simeon's, we can't break him here, but one more Balogar should finish him off. So I'm just going to hit him here with another Shocking Pursuit, and that finishes him off. I was thinking I would have to use one more Balogar to finish him off, but apparently I had enough damage. I attacked there because Tressa was full health, and she would be able to use Balogar on the next turn. She would have enough boost points to use it on the very next turn. As before, you get the flavor text from the conversations. Oh, and I paused briefly here again because I had to let our dog Sydney back in, but this is like a 30-second pause. So what you're getting here in terms of plot is kind of the full story of what's going on behind the 8 characters in Octopath Traveler. The 8 characters' stories are in fact all intertwined. One of the common criticisms of this game when it came out was people like, well, you've got these 8 characters, but the stories don't really have anything to do with one another. It's actually not true. They actually are all connected, but you don't get to see that unless you come here at the very, very, very end of the game. And I really wish that this wasn't, like, this crucial part of the story wasn't all hidden behind an optional endgame sequence that most players are probably never going to see because it's not that easy to get here, to be honest. That was telling us a little bit more of Primrose's background, and it's a letter from her deceased father to her. So, like I said, if you're interested in reading all that, I'm thinking people can just kind of pause the video and read through the text, but I didn't want to take the extra time because this is going to be kind of a long video in the first place. So next boss, we're going to be dealing with Ulbricht's boss. This is Werner, one of the most difficult bosses as well. And I am loading up Tressa with the 2 status ailments that he can do. He can stun and he can also inflict terror. And we need to block both of those because getting stunned would be basically an instant game over. And terror would be really bad as well because Tressa wouldn't be able to gain boost points. The problem with that, though, is because Tressa has to block those status ailments, she can't add more hit points, so she's only at 5,700 HP. So what I end up doing here is, I was like, I'm actually just going to heal for 1 turn, and that will allow me to get more turns of the rune in play, 7 turns instead of 5 turns. I did that because I wasn't sure if Werner was going to get 4 turns in a row, which is kind of dangerous. You need to be careful when any boss gets a whole bunch of actions in a row, because like if you go at the beginning of one round and then you go at the end of another round, the boss can potentially get like 4 actions in a row, or the ones that get 3 actions per round, they can sometimes get as many as 6 actions in a row, and that's really bad. You want to avoid that if you can. All right, in terms of the way we're playing this battle, what I want to do is, Werner is similar to Simeon in the sense that the second half of the battle becomes much harder. That is, when he drops below 50% health, he becomes way more dangerous than when he's above 50% health. He goes up to 3 actions per turn, and needless to say, his damage output goes up significantly if he gets 3 actions per round instead of 2. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to deliberately take him down to half health without breaking him. I'm going to deliberately avoid breaking the boss, get him down to half health, and then after I knock him below half health, then I will break him, use Baloghar's Blade for like 50,000 damage, then use another Baloghar's Blade and finish him off, and get through the second half of the battle as quickly as possible. So again, just trying to work around the more dangerous parts of his AI scripting. Werner just does a lot of physical damage. He's 100% physical, does not deal elemental damage at all. So I've tried to bring some extra, as much evade as possible. I've actually equipped an item that gives, a helmet that gives Tressa even more evade than she had before. So she's dodging some of these attacks. I'd say maybe somewhere between like 1/2 and 1/3 of the attacks, which does reduce the damage that she's taking. As far as the rune that she's picking, note that I'm going to switch to sword here. I switch from axe over to sword because I'm deliberately not trying to break the boss here, as I said. We're going to wait until he gets under half health, and then we're going to break him. I'm also using ice as an element because Werner is not weak against ice elements. I'm deliberately picking one that he is not weak against because I don't want to break him right now. So that's the logic. We're just continuing to hit him for 9999 until he is below half health, and then we will break him and start using Tressa's Divine Skill. Werner also uses some really dangerous stuff. You might see him using that Oppression. That is a debuff. It debuffs physical attack and debuffs physical defense. So it's quite bad because he's all physical damage, and then he will debuff your physical defense as well, which just causes him to deal 50% more damage on these attacks. That double strike in particular is pretty deadly because hits for like 1100 each time, and if he hits twice, well, you can imagine that's 2200 damage from one potential attack. But we are dodging some of these, and look right there, I spot that Werner is now under half health. We can tell because the text changes over to yellow. So now I'm going to switch to the axe, break him, hit with the last use of Icy Pursuit before it runs out. Good timing there. And then now we will use Baloghar's Blade for the big 50,000 damage. It's something like that. I don't know the exact amount, but 7,000 times 4 and then 9,000 on the ice and the lightning. So now Werner's going to go ahead and hit Tressa, but this lines up perfectly again. I can use another one of these Refreshing Jams. And look, she's got 2 boost points, so she's going to get a 3rd boost point here, and that's enough to unlock Baloghar's Blade again, which always requires 3 boost points. And now we can use Baloghar's Blade again. It does less damage because Werner's not broken, but that's it, and we finish him off. He never even goes up to 3 actions. So that's basically a perfectly played fight against that boss. I was able to avoid the really dangerous parts of his AI scripting, so he never managed to get up to the 3rd action per round. You can see he was pretty dangerous, even with just 2 actions per round. What we're learning here is that Werner and his was the mastermind behind overthrowing the Kingdom of Hornburg, and he was working together with the woman who's kind of the mastermind, Black, who we'll see at the end of all this, giving us a little bit of background detail on that. So those are the 3 bosses that are genuinely dangerous. The other 5 are not ultimately very dangerous. So at this point, I've basically already won. I just need to do the execution. So I'm going to switch here to the Adamantine Hat, which is Tressa's preferred hat because it has extra elemental attack on it. I also switch to the Robe of the Flame, which is an item that has very heavy elemental defense on it. And then I'm going to switch to a Void Amulet to block dark element damage, and then a Tempest Amulet to block wind element damage. So we're blocking dark element, we're blocking wind element, and we've basically maxed out our elemental resistance. I think Tressa's at like 9 980 or 970 or something. In addition to this, Tressa also has a passive that always runs in the background by virtue of being a Rune Lord that's called Elemental Edge. It's one of the support skills for the class. It gives you permanent element attack up, and it gives you permanent element defense up. Really, really good stuff. That's what the little indicators are next to her on the interface there. She is always an elemental defense up and always an elemental attack up. It's just an amazing skill. So here I'm going to go ahead and attack the boss here. This is Ophelia's endgame boss, Matthias. He is weak against axes and against light. You might notice I did not boost for her initial rune. Normally I boost on the initial rune so that she gets 5 turns of it instead of 3 turns. But I didn't need to do that because I was able to break him with just 2 turns. 1 hit with the axe, 1 hit with the light. And then that was enough to get through his 4 shields. And then we hit with Balulgar's Blade. And yeah, hit for 50,000 damage. This guy's kind of a joke. Honestly, Matthias is not really very dangerous at all if you take the proper precautions. And that being to block his dark element and that being to block his wind element, because all of his damage is pretty much one of those 2 elements. So not really very scary. He will summon help. Oh Savior, we gladly give our lives for you. And as you're going to see, that's pretty much what they do. They do lock out the weaknesses on the boss. Now, I don't really need to kill the minions. They're not very dangerous, but we'll just go ahead and kill them anyway. And remember how they said that they would give their life for the Savior? Well, yeah, that's more or less what's happening here, because they only have like 8,000 health and they just die instantly. So one other thing I'll mention is Matthias has used an ability called Infernal Flame. That's like the red border around the edges of the screen that you're seeing. It says that it locks out magical attacks. What it actually does is it locks out area of effect magical attacks. It does not block single target magic damage, which is it's not really clear why that is, but that's just the way the game works. I don't really understand that, but so not really that scary, basically. It does not stop Balulgar's Blade because Balulgar's Blade is single target, and it certainly doesn't block Tressa's elemental runes, which don't apply at all. So Matthias will keep summoning more minions. He actually has 3 sets of minions he summons. But again, these things aren't really very dangerous because what do? They attack, which is not very dangerous, or they use black magic, which is dark element, and that is blocked by Tressa's void amulet, so she just takes no damage from that, just as she's been taking no damage from the Black Gales. Now, if you don't have the proper preparations, I suppose this battle could be hard, but the void amulet really does block almost all of what Matthias can do, because he uses that consuming darkness over and over and over again, and the void amulet just blocks all the damage. The way that works is the Void Amulet and all of the amulets that block one particular element is they reduce damage by 99% to that element. Yeah, 99%. So they basically just make you immune to that element. I don't know why they didn't just reduce it to 0. Basically, the difference between taking 5 damage and taking 0 damage is pretty much irrelevant. But whatever, they don't. So you take, 5 damage when it pops up. I'm just going to renew the light element here on Tressa in preparation for breaking Matthias. I was thinking, all right, I'll renew light element, then I'll break him here, and then hit him with Balulgar's Blade. But as it turned out, he decided to summon again. I was like, oh, okay. Well, if he's going to summon again, I guess we'll just kill his minions. All of the minions he summons are weak against light element, so they go down very quickly to this Bright Pursuit. This is one battle where light element's really good. Not surprising because this is Ophelia's Chapter 4 opponent, and Ophelia's specialty is using light element. So we'll just take out the minions, then break the boss. You get to see all 3 of the minion types that he can summon. After this minion, he doesn't summon anymore. This is the last one that we have to worry about. So goodbye. 1 auto attack, 2 auto attacks. That does it. We're actually overkilling these by a lot. They have I think about 14,000 health. So we're, like I said, overkilling them by a lot. Matthias called for help, but nobody came. Yep, out of minions to toss in front of us. Just him. And like I said, we really didn't have to kill the minions. It's just, why not? Go ahead and break him, and then the ability to use Balulgar's Blade again for 50,000-ish damage or whatever. I don't remember if this ends up killing him, but he's certainly going to take a lot of damage from it. Alright, there he goes. Like I said, not really a very serious boss. I did use 1 Refreshing Jam. I probably didn't need to use it, but it was just one of those cases of, might as well. Why not be safe? I have, 40-something of those Refreshing Jams. Here we get a lot of background on Matthias, and this is information that's really interesting to learn because you don't get this anywhere in the game elsewhere. Matthias apparently is over 100 years old, was given the gift of, eternal youth by Lieblack, and, was kind of set himself up as this false prophet. Started out as a follower of the Sacred Flame, but then lost his faith, and then started working for the Dark God Galdera. We also find out that he poisoned Ophelia's adopted father, that he was responsible for that. And then at the end, we get this text where he is basically in hell, and he's pleading for help, but there's nobody there to help him. So yeah, like really useful, interesting information here that you would want to know, but it's kind of hidden here in this endgame sequence that most people are never going to see. And I'm just double checking here. So I'm going back to the Ethereal Dancer Guard, which has evade on it, because this is a boss that's more physical in nature. The only status thing I have to make sure I bring is I have to make sure I block silence, because this is a boss who can deal silence. This is Cyrus's boss. This is Headmaster Yvonne. He is not the Chapter 4 boss of Cyrus. He's actually the Chapter 3 boss. And all of the remaining bosses we're going to see are actually the Chapter 3 bosses instead of the Chapter 4 bosses. We have you get 4 of the bosses are Chapter 4 bosses, and 4 of the bosses are Chapter 3 bosses. This is one of the Chapter 3 bosses. Yvonne is not very dangerous at all. Like I said, the only ones that I genuinely find to be dangerous in this group of 8 endgame bosses, at least for Tressa, I can't speak for other characters, but at least for her, the only ones that I found to be dangerous were Darius and Simeon and Werner. The others were, well, just not anything she couldn't deal with. So we're going to deal with the minions first here. These 2 skeleton minions. When you first fight Yvonne, he has 2 researcher minions. They switched up his minions for this boss refight. And they actually have a ton of health, the minions. They each have like 30,000 health or something like that. So they have quite a bit, but it's largely just a matter of cutting through their health. It does help when you're dealing 9999 damage every single time. The one attack that Yvonne can do that silences is that Intimidate attack. You might have seen it. It was the one that came down like from the sky. That's the one that can silence. So we just block that with the Articulate Amulet or Articulate Stone before the fight starts. And aside from that, Yvonne's doesn't really do a whole lot. The thing about him is he only gets 1 action per turn, and that's what makes him not dangerous. Yeah, I mean, just compare Yvonne getting 1 action per round to like Werner or Simeon getting 3 actions per round, and it's like, oh yeah, that's just, if you only attack once per round, it's not that scary. So I'm going to use Balagar's Blade just to finish off this the other minion. Might as well. No real reason not to. Tressa had a full had a full boost meter. Well, I guess she didn't have full boost meter, but she had a lot of it. And I am bringing the evade gear for Tressa because this is a boss that deals all physical damage. You might think that Yvonne would be elemental, but no, he's all physical. His damage is entirely physical in nature. I went ahead and used the Refreshing Jam there just because he had 2 actions in a row. I wasn't too worried about that, but just better safe than sorry. We've got plenty of elixirs. We might as well make use of them. And because she had a full boost meter, I'm switching over to Light Element because that's what Yvonne is actually weak against. He is not weak against the Thunder. One of the nice things about this endgame boss rush is you actually do get to see me use all 6 of the elements on the Rune Lord, which is kind of fun. So right here, let's see, what am I going to do? I'm just going to Refreshing Jam here for safety again. Don't really need to, but why not? And again, that's the one attack that can silence, so that's why we're dodging that. So we'll go ahead and break him here, using that Bright Pursuit, and now we have enough boost points to use Balagar's Blade, hit for a whole bunch of damage, 50,000 or so damage, roughly, between the 6 elements. So now Yvonne will open up some more weaknesses. He does get more shields on recovering from a break, but he remains weak against light. He's always weak against light. This is him dropping under 50% health. He does get some more, he does get some additional attacks, some of which are more dangerous. He can do this Shatter Soul, which takes away some of your spirit points. Actually took away all of the spirit points here, since Tressa did not dodge that. So like that's a more dangerous attack, and she also has an attack he also gains an attack that causes him to drain boost points, but he never gets more than 1 attack per round, so he's just not that scary, honestly. Here we don't actually have an elemental rune in play, so I'm going to re-enable fire, or enable fire. He gains a weakness to fire elements. So there you go. I don't think we've seen fire as an elemental damage type yet. So we're going to use that here, and now we have enough boost points to use Balagar's Blade, so we'll break him and then use Balagar's Blade again. One thing you do have to be careful with is after bosses are broken, they will always act first in the turn order. So like you can see, he's going to act first in the turn order, And that's one of the reasons why you do have to be a little bit careful about breaking them, but like Yvonne only gets 1 attack per round, so even though he's going to act first in the next round, he won't do that much. And let's just be clear, he died anyway, so it didn't matter. Here we learn a little bit more about Yvonne's background, about how he was responsible for a plot for murdering the previous headmaster, and then was involved in this plot with the book that Cyrus was chasing throughout his story, the From the Far Reaches of Hell. And then he was betrayed by his assistant at the end, the one that you defeat at the end of Cyrus's story. But yep, enough of Headmaster Yvonne. Really all we have to deal with. So we need to heal up Tressa for the next fight using these recovery items. And the one thing I have to do here is I have to switch from the Articulate Stone that blocks silence to the Antidote Stone that blocks poison. And that's the main thing I need here, because this is a boss that is entirely focused around poison. This is Tressa's Chapter 3 boss, the Venom-Toothed Tiger. This is one of the weakest bosses relative to when you fight them in the story. This is among the Chapter 3 bosses, I think this one is definitely the weakest. But the refight's actually quite a bit more dangerous because this boss just hits like a truck now that it's gotten higher stats. Like, these attacks are pretty dangerous. And for whatever reason, this boss also seems to have high accuracy because Tressa doesn't seem to dodge very many of these attacks. She is wearing her evade gear, but she doesn't dodge particularly well. Like, in particular, that Venom Fang hits for, I don't know, almost 2,000 damage, and that's a lot. If you don't block poison, this is an extremely dangerous fight because not only do you have to deal with poison ticking every round, poison is a serious threat in Octopath Traveler. Poison deals 1/6 of your maxed HP every round. So like it would be doing about 1,100 damage to Tressa on every single round, which would obviously not be such a great thing. Here I'm thinking about, do I need to heal or am I safe to go ahead and rune up? And I figured, I was just doing the numbers in my head. I was like, all right, the boss can't kill me even if it hits with like a sweep and then that claw attack. She still would have had enough health to survive. So a little bit risky there. But I was confident that even if all of the attacks hit, then Tressa would not die. But like you see there how much damage. You can take 3,000 from 2 attacks, just like that. And then another 1,200. I'm like, all right, well, that was a lot of damage. If Tressa doesn't land her dodges, she can take a punishment in a real hurry. And like right here where the boss is going to get 3 rounds in a row, it's a little dangerous. But there, Tressa does land her dodges. She dodges 2 attacks in a row, and all of a sudden we're in great shape. Again, so I'm just trying to break the boss here. And again, a little dangerous. There's 4 rounds in a row for the boss to act, but Tressa's at max HP, so she should be okay. She has just enough health so that even if the boss gets 4 attacks in a row and all of them land, she still will not die, fortunately. And yeah, there's the Venom Fang. So I'm going to use Balagar's Blade here, so watch. The reason for that is the first hit will break the boss, and then all 6 of the 5 subsequent runes will hit against a broken target. And then that allows me to go ahead and attack here and get in another free round of damage on the subsequent turn when the boss was broken. So that was just taking advantage of the fact that the boss is weak against fire, and fire happens to come up first in the order of the runes. The runes always go in the same order when you're using Balagar's Blade. It starts with fire, and let's see, I was trying to decide whether to use Balagar's Blade or attack with the fire rune, but I decided to just use Balagar's Blade again. Boss is not broken, but the damage is going to be pretty good regardless. But yeah, the damage is always the same order. First, it goes fire, ice, lightning, wind, dark, and then light. Always goes in that order. So if the boss has 1 shield left and it's weak against fire, you can just you can use fire for the initial break and then you'll get full damage from all of the others. Here, I'm just setting up for more Balagar's Blades. The boss is nearly dead, so I'm not going to bother to use one of the runes again. I'm just going to try to finish this off just with Balagar's Blade. That's why I used the Energizing Pomegranate, because I didn't need a health restore there. Now, the boss has gone ahead and used something called Peerless Poison. This causes poison to drain not just hit points, but also drains spirit points and boost points as well, which is really bad. But if you prevent yourself from ever being poisoned in the first place, you don't have to worry about that. So make sure if you are bringing a solo character to this fight that you block poison. You don't want to deal with that. Poison is not your friend against this boss. So this should be enough damage to finish it off. One more Balagar's Blade should be doing 25,000 or so, roughly, and that's enough for the kill. So another boss down, like I said, not the most dangerous, but a little bit more dangerous than some of the ones. Certainly more dangerous than Matthias. Here we're going to get the first diary from Graham Crossford. Graham Crossford is one of the characters that we don't ever directly see. Well, I guess we directly see it in a flashback from Alphen. He is actually involved in quite a few of the character stories, even though we don't really see him too much. He turns out to be the one who actually wrote the diary that Tressa's been carrying around for the whole game. It was his journal initially, his journal of his travels, and then it was handed over to pirate captain Leon Bastral, and then to Tressa. And then Tressa eventually gives it to another NPC at the end of the game. But here's where we find that out. And we see how Tressa's story is again connected to Alphen's story. All right, so next up, I'm going to be dealing with the boss of Alphen. So I'm going to go ahead and grab heavy physical defense. And I'm also then going to pick up, because I don't need any particular status ailments, I can just take double empowering necklaces. So I have basically dropped the ability for Tressa to evade attacks in favor of her getting as much physical defense as possible. I think she's at 986, so she's basically maxed out physical defense here. The cap is 999, so I'm just stacking as much physical defense as possible and as much health as possible because I don't need to block any status ailments. This is Alphen's Chapter 3 boss. This is Miguel. He is all physical in terms of his damage. And so what we're going to do, like I said, is just try to block as much physical damage. He makes so many attacks that evade, I feel, is not that helpful in this battle. It's better just to get higher base, physical defense here for this battle. And note that we're using swords here instead of using axes because Miguel is actually weak against swords and also weak against Dark Element. A rare use of Dark Element here. Most of these bosses being kind of evil or unholy or whatever are not weak against Dark Element, but this guy actually is. So it's our one chance to see this element. Here I'm sitting and thinking, I was like, all right, he is going to get 4 actions in a row, but I was pretty confident that he would not be able to kill Tressa. You might also notice Tressa is now regenerating health and spirit points at the end of each round. That is because she's using the battle-tested shield here, which has that property of regeneration. So that's what we're working with here. And this is her last turn of having Dark Element. So I'm going to go ahead and... Oh, do I use it here? Oh, actually, so I do end up healing with Refreshing Jam. I opted that it was safer to get the heal. So what you're going to see is a rare case of Tressa attacking when she doesn't have an elemental rune in play. We're just going to use the sword for the break here. That will also stop that hurl spears from landing. And then we can go ahead and use Balogar's Blade against the broken Miguel here for big damage again. And he actually takes even more damage. I guess his elemental defense is lower than some of these other bosses. He takes a little bit more than some of the others we've seen. So, like I said, I've given up my evade gear to get more total physical defense. The logic for that is Miguel is going to debuff your physical defense. You might notice that's what those little indicators are on the interface. He is debuffing her physical defense and her physical attack. And then here, you might have noticed he's gone up to like 7 actions in a row. So what I'm going to do is or 5 actions in a row. I'm just going to defend for this turn because this is where it's like a one-off thing where he gets a ton of attacks for 1 round. So we're just going to defend against these and like not take any damage. In particular, the Hurl Spear is going to go off, and then the Hurl Spear is going to land while we're defending and just do no damage at all. And then he's going to attack again with Hurl Spears and just, he got like, 9 actions in a row there. And we basically took, 1,000 damage from all of those. So that's just me taking advantage of the turn order to block all the damage that was going to come in. And now Miguel's back to just 2 actions again. Because like I said, that's a one-off thing. He doesn't get that permanently. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to block the damage from that second Hurl Spears, but you get the idea. Strategically using defense to put Tressa in a position where she'll take a lot less damage. One of the nice things about being not having to use any status protecting ailments is the fact that I can load up with just a ridiculous amount of health. Getting up to 7,700 health definitely makes you a lot safer. You just have that much wider grace period. Every one of those refreshing jams heals back so much more. So I just have more room for error, basically. And I'm continuing to use Balogar's Blade here because I felt like this was close to the end of the fight. It wouldn't be worthwhile to try and invest a whole bunch of boost points in auto-attacking again. In addition, this phase of Miguel no longer is weak against swords or axes, so I would only be able to break 1 shield per round of attacking, not multiple ones. So just seemed like it made more sense to rely on Balogar here. Again, I don't really need a refreshing jam here, but again, safety, no reason. We've already defeated 6 bosses. We've got 1 more to go after this. No reason to take a loss here for no reason. So the spears hit. More spears hit, and now we'll just Balagar, and that should be enough to finish off Miguel. Getting real used to seeing these Balagar's blades. It's an amazing divine skill. Really, just immense damage. The only drawback to that skill is it is single target damage. Runelord is entirely single target. No multi-target abilities whatsoever. That's about the only weakness to this class whatsoever. It is extremely powerful class. So we continue with Graham Crossford's diary. This time we find out that he was unable to prepare an elixir in time to save his wife. And instead, he decided to use that elixir that he prepared for Alphen instead, who he didn't even know, but came across someone who was suffering from the same disease. So this is the interaction between this character, Graham, who we only see in flashbacks, and Alphen. And we also are hearing here that Graham is tempted by the thought of maybe he could get his loved one back by Lai Black, who's kind of like this mastermind in the background. But one more battle to go. For this battle, I am bringing an Inferno Amulet that will block fire element damage, and that's because this boss uses fire element damage. Again, I am not running Evade gear. I found that Tressa in past battles just did not dodge very often against this particular opponent, so it just made more sense to stack physical defense against this boss's physical attacks, and then bring the Inferno Amulet for fire element damage. That's the most dangerous attack this boss can do, Rending Claw. Overall, though, this boss is not too scary because this boss never goes up beyond 2 attacks per round, and you can block the damage from the fire damage with an Inferno Amulet. So I'm going to defend there, and again, the logic is because that way Tressa can break on the next turn, and then she'll have enough boost points to use her Divine Skill. If she had attacked on the previous turn, she would not have had enough boost points to break out her Divine Skill, which is, of course, the goal here. Hit for the double damage when the boss is broken. So there we go. Balagar's Blade. Once again, familiar with seeing it by now. Still pretty cool though, getting the 6 attacks. This boss does block out some of its weaknesses, but fortunately the first 2 breaks, Axes and Light Element, are available for both of the first 2 breaks. So I can keep doing the same setup. There, I'm going to go ahead and get boost points back because I want to re-enable the Light Rune and get it for the full 9 rounds by boosting, and we'll just keep working with that. You also seen the dragon using Dragon Fire repeatedly, that fire element damage, but it's just blocked by the Inferno Amulet. This boss only does 3 things: Rending Claw, Basic Attack, and Dragon Breath, and that's it. Those are the only things this boss does. It is a very simple AI script. Well, that's not entirely true. In a full party, it will disable one of your party members. It will knock them off the battlefield for some period of time. So we're not seeing everything this boss can do because Tressa's a solo character, but this is an easy boss for a solo character. You just need to be able to basically have enough health to survive the physical attacks and block the Dragon Fire with an Inferno Amulet. Rending Claws, I mean, the damage is not nothing, but it's not too bad overall, especially if you have this much health. So now here's the thing. Note that there's 3 shields on the boss. So I'm actually going to boost the auto attack to get 2 axe swings. Then the light comes in, and so we get the break here on the boss. Was able to dump in that 1 extra boost point for an extra axe attack. It's something you aren't able to do that often with the Runelord, only if the boss has an axe or sword's weakness, but this was one case where it lined up perfectly, and it was worthwhile to toss in that extra auto. So it says the dragon is wounded and has grown angry, but the dragon's AI script does not change up at all. Maybe it removes another party member. I don't know. It's been a while since I've played this boss with a full party instead of a solo character. But as far as a solo is concerned, the AI script is exactly the same. The dragon does not get any more dangerous. It just continues using the exact same 3 attacks over and over and over again. Again, this is a situation where Tressa doesn't really need to use Refreshing Jam, but safety first because this boss is almost dead, and I would be really stupid to die here, and then I'd have to do this whole sequence over again. I actually have done this sequence a couple times, but I wanted to record it at least once for YouTube just because I don't have any footage for the Runelord, and I figure it's fun to see the Runelord take down all these endgame bosses as a solo character, just to show what is possible in this game with the right setup. And anyway, there we go. Balagar's Blade finishes it off. Like I said, there really was no serious danger after I beat the first 3 bosses. They were the only ones that had a realistic chance of defeating Tressa. It was all about execution after that. So here's the final entry from Graham Crossford. We find that he has been used in one of these kind of unholy ritual ceremonies by Lai Black previously. And needless to say, it didn't go well for Graham. for what I don't know why he was foolish enough to be used in this ceremony in the first place. I guess he was trying to get his wife back, but that did not happen. Instead, Graham is turned into a monster, and you can see the text kind of going all crazy at the end. And we can infer as a result of this that Graham Crossford actually becomes the monster Red Eye that H'aanit chased down in her story. And here we get a little cutscene of the final boss door opening. So this will lead us to the final boss of the game, Galdera. Tressa, Solar Runelord, cannot defeat Galdera. It literally is impossible because you need 8 characters to do it. There's 2 phases to the boss, and she can only be possible for the first one. So needless to say, it literally is impossible for her to do this, but I'll give it a shot. One of the problems with this boss, though, is because you have to fight all these other bosses before you even get a chance to try on this boss. I don't have a lot of practice dealing with this boss, so I don't really have a good sense for like what the optimal ways to approach this might be. In addition to that, because it's not possible for a solo character to defeat this boss anyway, I'm not inclined to spend a lot of time fooling with it. So yeah, there's our 2 parties, our level 1 characters. So yeah, for a solo game, the only character that gets any levels is Olberic, because you need his challenge to defeat some of the NPCs. So that's why he's level 35. He has only been used for challenges to defeat some of the NPCs that you need to finish side quests and things like that. I also needed him to farm up some of those refreshing jams. There is one NPC that you can challenge to get refreshing jams. You can get an infinite number. So I farmed I don't know, like 40 of them for this endgame sequence. And here's more of the plot from Lilac here, telling us basically she's going to use poor Kit, who's an NPC we ran across during the course of the game. Poor Kit is now going to be sacrificed because Kit is a moron and listens to her, even though she's very obviously evil. But oh well. So they're going to summon Galdera, and then we're going to have to fight him, and Tressa will not win this battle. Spoiler alert. Not just because Galdera is ridiculously strong, but also because even if we were to get to the second phase of the fight, we would just auto lose because we have a party of like level 1 characters. And that would not work out. At some point, I'm going to have to practice this fight more, not for a solo game, but for a non-variant game, because I haven't actually finished off this fight yet with my non-variant starting party. I have to go back and do that at some point. Pretty sure I could manage it with like characters that weren't doing the game by themselves as solos. So at least you get to see what the final boss looks like, but I don't have a lot of information to pass on here because, as I said, I have not spent much time on this boss. It is slightly obnoxious that there's no save point anywhere here. You have to do all 8 of those boss refights and then face this final boss. And since it takes a good, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes to get through the initial 8 bosses before you can even get a chance to face Galdera, I just don't have much practice against this guy. What I do know is that this boss, there's multiple parts to this boss. There's that initial eye that gets sealed off. And by the way, that eye, which is the main opponent, has 500,000 HP. That's right, 500,000 HP. And these bosses also deal like all kinds of damage. So yeah, ow, that hurts. So I'm going to refreshing jam here with Tressa just to get her back to full HP. And then she takes more damage from that. So I was like, all right, well, Tressa's at 5,000 HP. Let's try to get a hit on this Raging Soul. I do know that it's weak against Light Element, so there we go. But what I failed to realize is that's 4 actions in a row from the boss. And I was like, all right, well, that's not good. Maybe I should have healed back there? And yeah. Well, that was fast. Darkness covers the land, and Galdera is victorious. But as I said, I was never planning on defeating that boss at all. The goal was to get through the 8 boss refights and to show you what that looks like for a solo character. So that's Solo Runelord. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I just get a bit of a taste for what this Solo Runelord character looked like. If you enjoyed this, there's much more information about this on my website, so you can see more of these solo games. So until next time, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. See you guys soon.